All right, hello everyone. I'm Julie Ross, and I'm here with my friend Shay Kemp.
Hello, everybody.
Are here because we want to help you. So we've had so many people ask us, "Help! I'm going to homeschool my kids next year, and I don't know what to do." And so rather than, we love answering everyone's questions individually, but we thought maybe if we made this video, it would kind of answer some broad questions for folks and be of assistance to you all. So I know it can be a little daunting to think about embarking on this journey for next year, but unfortunately, because of the situation with COVID, a lot of us don't have any other option. And so hopefully this video will encourage you and inspire you, and you can make this year be really awesome for you and your family. So, but before we get started, Shay, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Shay Kemp, and I'm married to David. I have 5 children, 3 of whom I graduated from homeschool all the way through. I have 2 more at home. And so we just are about to start our 17th year of homeschooling. And I found Julie through the curriculum that I use, and have really enjoyed getting to know her for the past 4 years. And this is just a journey. I'm learning something new every single year. And my heart is really to help people take a deep breath when they start homeschooling so that they can enjoy it and it doesn't feel like a burden.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I'm Julie Ross. I also have 5 kids, and one is in college. The other one will be a senior this year. And then I have 3 younger ones, 12, 11, and 10 that I'm homeschooling still. And so I've been homeschooling for over 15 years, and I created a curriculum called A Gentle Feast, which is a Charlotte Mason curriculum for the entire family. And I kind of explained a little bit about what Charlotte Mason is, but mostly we wanted to kind of give an overview of homeschooling just in general, and not any specific philosophy or curriculum or anything like that. So, first of all, the first thing to consider if you're going to homeschool is how to make yourself legal.
That's important, just
Very
a little bit.
Yes. So what did you want to say about that, Shay?
Well, the laws really vary from state to state.
Yeah.
And there's lots of stuff online that I actually yesterday just spent a few minutes kind of Googling a few things for some people who had sent me some messages that are not in my state. So it's easy to find exactly what your laws are, but I really suggest that once you go online and get a broad overview, find somebody specific in your local area to get those specific local legal requirements. We're in South Carolina, and we have 3 options in this state. Most people fall into option 3, but I know that it varies wildly from state to state. So it depends on where you are and you're watching this, what you would need to do to get legal.
Right. And yeah, Google's great. There's also the Homeschool Legal Defense Association,
Yes.
HSLDA, and they have state by state requirements on their website. But finding someone that has been homeschooling near you is a great resource, because you can Google it and read it. And I know people like in South Carolina with these different options are telling me stuff, and I'm like, well, no, that's not what you have to do. Because you read all this wording, but that's what might actually happen in real life can be totally 2 different things sometimes. So, having someone who can kind of navigate you through all that. Okay, here's what we do. You call this person and they do that. Is super helpful too. But if you don't have a person that Facebook is a great resource. Just type in your state, homeschool group, your town.
Yeah.
There's so many great resources, and just post the question, what do I need to do for my legal requirements? And that's a great place to find an answer to that. So once you're legal, that's super important. Usually they'll have to send some kind of letter or something to the school that your kids are no longer going to be going to if they were going to public school before. So now that you're legal, let's talk about kind of our mindset going into this. So first, let's think through what's our purpose for homeschooling. And I know a lot of people might just be like, we don't have another choice. So, but
our purpose is just to educate our kid right now.
Yeah, right. We have no other options. This is what we have to do. But rather than see it as a burden or something like we have to do, and I always say this to my kids too, and they're like, do I have to do my math? I'm like, no, you get to do your math. So seeing this as a blessing and an opportunity to really invest in your kids and your family rather than oh dear, what are we doing?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I think it's really important to take a step back and just take a deep breath and
Yeah.
really sort of consider, okay, I'm in this situation. What could it look like that would be really positive for our family? And just, an afternoon by yourself with a cup of coffee, or maybe even, I think the local support you're talking about is just really, really vital, really, really key.
Yeah.
Um, to navigate that, maybe somebody that you could sit down with and say, okay, what can this look like that could be positive for us? What are our goals? What are our purposes? It can be overwhelming for somebody that's never had the burden on them for the homeschooling, for all the educating.
Mhm.
So sometimes you just can't even get your mind clear. It seems like a huge checklist. A lot of the people I've talked to they just have this lit to-do list, but before you get to that,
Yeah.
take a deep breath, step back and say, what do I want to accomplish through this? Do I want my child to really focus on some skills that they're really good at? Do I want us to, their writing needs to be improved, or we really need to focus on family positivity right now, or whatever? Anything that, you can sort of put a positive spin on it before you sit down and finish that to-do list.
Yeah, and it really does give you a unique opportunity because, in a traditional school setting, they're working with multitudes, but you can
Yes.
work with your individual child. So,
Yes.
take the time. What does this child actually need right now in their life? And you might not know that if you haven't been seeing what they've been doing in school, but you can, do some math problems, do some writing, do some reading, kind of see where they're at, right? And what they might need. Their strengths and their weaknesses. What habits do we need to work on? Charlotte Mason talks a lot about that as a part of education as well. So it gives you a unique opportunity during the day to work on habits when your kids are awake and energized, rather than when they come home and they're tired and they have homework to do. So you really can work on building the routine structure of your family. Think through, like, what is your family culture, like what values and ideas and things you want to instill in your children during this time. And so that will kind of shape like your homeschooling, right? Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yes, I think it's so important to think of your purpose beyond just the particular set of subjects. So
Mhm.
it's easy for us to say, okay, in math we need to work on,
Right.
multiplication tables. But what we're saying is the difficult days when they don't want to do their multiplication tables can be made easier if you think past just the subjects to more of a purpose of, why am I doing this in the first place? And yes, I'm getting a lot of messages and emails and texts like, I'm doing this because we just cannot, we don't
Right.
have a choice. We
Right.
can't deal with the options. But beyond that, not just what do we need to do in language, what do we need to do in math, but I would like to build a stronger sense of unity within my children. So I would like for them to own their education more. So they're going to do more of their own reading. Those kind of broad ideas.
Yeah.
Yes, think about that. And then that can sort of drive the more specific ideas.
Right. Yeah.
And
And I think oftentimes it's easy. We just want the specifics. Like, give me the textbook, give me the checklist. So I know I'm getting all the boxes filled in of what we're supposed to do for this grade without taking the time to think and it really is a unique opportunity to think about, what do you want? What
right.
does your child need? Who are they, right? What has God created in them? And tailor what you're doing at home to your specific family. It really is a unique opportunity that you have before you. So,
And when I was a public school teacher, and I know Julie was too, and as much as I adored my children and worked really, really hard at my job, you don't get that opportunity of individualized instruction that you get with homeschooling, which can be daunting because
right.
but at the same time, you get to know your child in such a more, in such a deeper way, such a more specific way. Like, how do they need me to help them in this area, that area? So you may not know that in the beginning. I think we have to be honest that our purposes and goals will definitely change. You may start out with some the first week of school, and then you get in 6 weeks and you think, okay, we need to adjust here, and
Right.
we need to,
Right. Yeah. And it's also a very unique situation where most parents are at least working part-time
Hmm.
at the same time that they're homeschooling, where a lot of us had the blessing of being able to just homeschool for the first couple years, or just some people are still doing that, right? But because of COVID, a lot of people that are homeschooling for the first time, they're having to balance. Okay, I have to work this day, so dad's going to be home homeschooling this day, but then this day I'm going to be home, I'm going to be grandma or a neighbor. I mean, it's so many creative ways that people are kind of handling the situation. So it does create unique challenges
Yeah.
when you're balancing that many different schedules, or you're having to work in a room and answer phone calls, and you can't be interrupted, those kind of things. So I think it does take some creativity though to fit in the things that are really valuable for you at that point. And I did a whole podcast. If you go to homeschooling.mom, the Charlotte Mason show, there's a podcast on working and homeschooling at the same time with
Really good. I'll listen to that. Yeah, that's really helpful things in that podcast.
yeah. But do you have any thoughts on kind of that um when we're thinking
I
about
think um, one of the things that's super important if you're working from home, which most of us do in some way, shape, or form, or
even if it's not like a job you get paid, you still have to do the laundry and make dinner and stuff.
exactly
Yeah.
right. I think flexibility and really clear communication with your children. I'm unavailable from 8 to 10 or whatever. You're going to do this on your own. If you have questions, here's some sticky notes. You write your question on the sticky note, and I'll answer those when I'm done. So
Yeah.
I think really clear communication with your children, and just being flexible. I mean, there's plenty of times where I think I'm going to work from 9 to 10, but then life happens.
Right.
And so that's really important. And I actually think it's such a beautiful thing to watch the people that I've communicated with find ways to make this work for themselves, because I think some people get frustrated, oh gosh, how am I going to do this? I can't just dedicate 8 to 2 every day to get school done. But it says a lot to these children. These are our values, and we're going to do whatever it takes to work around to make education important. It might look like an hour here and 30 minutes here, but I think it communicates a lot of positive things to our kids to watch us solve these problems.
Right. Yeah. And they get to see the value of work, right? So when you're gone
Exactly.
all day at work, they may not know what you're doing, right? It's just like you go away, then you come back, and like money magically appears at our house, right?
Right.
So they get to see like, oh no, like my parent does XYZ, and they get to be a part of that, which is, I think, actually really neat for them.
And part of education. It's part of their education to see that,
It
I think.
prepares
So,
them for the real world, right? Where they're
exactly.
probably be working too.
Right.
And it's not like, yeah, they have to learn that respect and those boundaries, and see that your work is extremely important. But also, I really like what you said about kind of those little pockets of times. We kind of have to get out of that mindset of learning only
Right.
happens from 8 to 2. And
Right.
that's not how education works, right? Like education is happening all the time. And so if you're purposeful and intentional about what you're doing. So, it can be, we're going to have breakfast together as a family every day, and we're going to do history, and we're going to read whatever. Okay, every day at lunch, we're also going to add in the subject that we're all going to do together. At
Right.
night after dinner, instead of just everybody going off and watching something on TV, we're going to sit
Mhm.
together and do a science experiment or read the Bible, or a million other things, but
Right.
look at those different pockets of time and add in subjects to those as well. It doesn't have to be a formal, we're all going to sit at a table and work from this time to this time, because it doesn't work.
Right.
That's not life.
And I think what people need really from the people I've spoken to is they need permission to do that, if that makes sense. Like, I've had, like, can
Yes.
I do that?
Yeah.
Yes, we give you permission if you need it
Right.
to make this work for you. Yes, we have permission in this
Right. Well,
creative.
they might not know that, because like legally, like,
Right.
yeah, as long as you're getting the subjects done, nobody's policing to say, oh, you did it at 8 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
Nope, can't do that.
No, that doesn't count. Forget it. Exit out. So, you have the freedom to do that
Mhm.
as it fits your family, and be flexible. And one week it may look one way, and then the next week, something may change and tweak a little bit, move it around a little bit, and just keep moving forward and make it work. So,
And even the weekends. I mean, you can get a lot done on the weekend.
yes.
Go on family nature walks, or do some kind of project together on the weekend, when you might not be working from home too. So, we do have those days that aren't typical school days, but you're allowed to do school then and count those hours for what you're
get a lot done on Saturday. I mean, we've
God.
had things where a lot done on Saturday because there's no distraction. So,
Right.
yeah, I really think a lot of it is a lot telling people they do have the freedom to think outside that box. And it takes a little bit. I mean, when I started homeschooling, I was coming from a traditional schooling, public schooling situation. And we started out with the pledge every morning. Everybody lined up. That lasted like 3 days. I'm
calendar.
like,
We would sing
the calendar, right. And if you want to do that and that works for you, great. But if it doesn't work for you, the fact that it doesn't work is okay. I mean, you can figure out what works for you. And
and that's why I think it's important to think through your goals and your purpose before you start the next step, which is information gathering, because there is so much out there for homeschooling, and now there's even more stuff that is being produced and sold, right? And so if you don't have a clear, like, here's what I want, here's what works for my kid, this is the direction we're going to go, you can be completely overwhelmed.
Yes. And I remember the first time I went into a homeschool convention.
Oh my God.
And I walked into the vendor hall, which if you've never homeschooled before, they didn't happen this year because of COVID, but there's these huge halls, every kind of curriculum, every kind of product that you can possibly think of for every age and subject of homeschooling is in these vendor halls. And everybody is telling you, mine is the best. This will solve every problem you've ever had. So just give me your money. And it was, I mean, your heart just, what have I done? I can't. So it can be very overwhelming, and you can weed a lot of that out when you go back and start from step one. What are my goals? What do we actually need? We may not need a $500 microscope that everybody says, you have to have this, you may need to stop and really, really consider first. So yes, overwhelming is definitely.
I think it's kind of like, when you have a new baby and you read all this stuff and you buy like 7 million thousand things, and then when the baby actually comes, okay, I need diapers and onesies. Like, I didn't need all the million other pieces of equipment that are taking out my whole house,
Right.
But the second kid comes along, you're like, yeah, we don't need any of that. We're fine.
It really is very much like that. And I really encourage people not to spend a lot of money in the beginning. Really find as much free as you can, as you are inexpensive, while you get your feet underneath you and you really find out how your children best learn or what you need. I remember when we first started, I paid like $600 this boxed curriculum that had everything in it because I thought it was going to be the solution to everything, and it lasted not even 2 weeks. I'm like, this is never going to work. So that's scary, I think, because we want the answers laid out for us. But if you will say, I'm just going to start with the basics and I will add on little by little, it will save you a lot of stress. It'll also save your budget.
Yes.
A lot of stuff in the beginning.
Right. Which I know is super important for a lot of people with, kind of the job situation right now. Like, yes, start small, get some diapers and some onesies, and then add on like the pack and play and the Bajoran carrier and all that stuff as you find that you need it. Right. But at first, you can start very simple. So what would you say? Okay, what's the simple things, like, you have to have these?
The very first thing I would do is I would get some really fun, I'm just thinking about my kids, your fun school supplies that will make them excited. Yes. There's something about, like, I got to pick out my notebook. I got to pick out crayons. I buy a new pack of crayons every year. Why? I just have to have them. They got to be Crayola. I'm going to buy it every year.
And Ticonderoga pencils.
No, yes. I named my cat Ticonderoga when I was a little girl because I was so in love with those. That's not me at all. I realize that. I'm telling you about myself, but I did do that. I mean, something about that is exciting for a child to have those things, that to me is like the first thing. Okay, we're going to do school at home. We're going to get you a pack of crayons. We're going to pick out your pencils and a really cool notebook. I wouldn't go overboard, those things. After that, the next thing is library. I mean, I don't know about all states. In South Carolina, our libraries are open with monitored and sort of strange hours. I can't exactly figure it out.
You can order like stuff online and go pick it up, which it's what I'd rather do anyway. So I'm like,
Me
yay.
too.
Yeah.
I think most are open at some capacity right now. So once you get that little beginning that's going to get your kid excited, then I would start thinking about things at the library just for the beginning. And the other thing that's really important is a way to plan. Like, how are you going to plan? Now, I'm a planner person, and I have, a planner for my kids' social life. I have a homeschool planner. I have because that's fun for me. But even if I've seen some great planning that people just use a spiral bound notebook. I don't know if you've seen, there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot out there about
the 10-cent spiral notebook. Woohoo! One for
exactly
yep.
Right. And so I like to make mine pretty just because that's my sort of fun for me.
Yeah.
But finding a way to track everything, whatever works for you, I think is super important in the very beginning. So you're not all over the place.
Yeah, but don't make it too complicated. You just need to write down. You can even plan the first week of school.
Oh, absolutely.
And then worry about the next week after, like, just plan 1 week.
Yes.
You don't have to have the whole year planned, because you know what happens? Life.
Yes.
And then COVID, like, the year might not go as you want it to.
We've learned that this year, if nothing else. Because, my planner is like, I have so many X's on it. Nope, that didn't happen. Nope, that didn't happen. That didn't happen.
And 2 months with nothing on it. Right.
Exactly. But I think that's whatever works for you. And once again, that varies wildly from state to state. Like, some states really require a certain type of plan.
Right.
I know. And some, like in South Carolina, it's the burden, if you're option 3, is on the teacher on the family to keep the records. Some you have to send in. So that does have something to do with it. But I think if you get that sort of under your belt, you can take a deep breath. Okay, now at least I know how I'm going to plan.
Yes. So. Right. And thinking through, not necessarily having a schedule, but a routine. So
yes,
that's really well in school when you have like children and you're all kind of doing all these things together. You have to have that schedule. So from 9 to 9:15, we're going to have circle time. And then from 9:15 to 9:30, we're going to have language arts, or then we're going to have math. Like, that works very well in a school setting. In a home setting, because life happens, right? That doesn't work too well. So I prefer to have routines of, okay, here's what we do in the morning. And I think having a morning routine is so key. Even if you just spend the first week of school learning the morning routine.
Yes, that is a great
week. Especially coming off of summer, they might just wake up and go play with the neighbors or watch TV, or you have to really get the structure of, okay, this is school now. We got to eat breakfast. We got to make our beds. We got to get dressed. We got to do our hygiene stuff. Okay, that all has to be done before we can do this. This is the first thing we do every day. Kind of have that consistent start really helps. Otherwise, the whole day can just kind of go, ooh.
I do think that's the most important thing, is that routine, in order for your own sanity. And how many people have I heard say through the years, I could never do what you do. I could never do what, but you do have your own routine at home. I mean, everybody knows what happens in the morning before school, right? I mean, you do the same thing. Everybody knows what happens, like maybe Saturday it's more loose, but you're going to do chores. It's just an extension of that. And I even spend normally the week or 2 weeks before we actually start instruction, getting my children back into that routine every year. And I've homeschooled, this is our 17th year. Well, I do that every year because summer is just all over the place. Oh, yeah. And this year it's been crazy. I have college kids in, they've moved out, they've been, so it will help you 6 months from now, 6 weeks from now, to think through your routine and set that up. And that clear communication with your children is so important. Instead of coming down saying, I'm the teacher, this is what we're going to do. Okay, let's talk about, how do you like your mornings to start?
Yeah, get there.
My rule is, rear ends in the chair at 8:30. Mm-hmm. And because my children are a little older. So some kids need to get up at 7 a.m. for their rear end to be in the chair at 8:30. Some kids just need to roll out, brush their teeth, and they're fine. Whatever you need to do to be awake and aware at 8:30, that's fine with me. So there's a lot of freedom in that, if I didn't have a routine, we would never get anything done.
No, no, not at all. Yeah. So we kind of have like these posts throughout our day. Like, we have our morning routine and we have our morning time, and I can talk what that is in a second. And then, we have this is our individual work time. Yes. This is what the expectations are. Then we have our lunch time and we do our read alouds and things. Okay, now we have our quiet time, like kind of these blocks of time, rather than a set schedule. So this is from one of our favorite books for the children's sake. So if you
Yes.
really want to dive into Charlotte Mason, this is like the gateway drug. So for the
Life changing.
Susan Schaefer Macaulay, what?
It's life changing. That book.
Really
It's
is,
life
yeah.
changing.
But here she talks about routines, and she says that routines form habit. Take the area of human relationships. Routines do not make the relationship, but they are the frame upon which we can hang our experiences. Some families do not have a routine of eating meals together anymore. Anytime goes for snacking. So that's another thing. Just want to let y'all know, do not be shocked when your grocery bill quadruples. Well, I guess y'all probably know that if you've been quarantined, like homeschool kids throughout the day get so unbelievably hungry.
First breakfast, second breakfast, first snack, second snack, first lunch, second.
Yeah, we're all hobbits. We eat multiple breakfasts every day.
Right.
Anytime goes for snacking. People rush about at 1,000 activities, any one of which could be good, but what is the sum total? Without the priority of a framework, nothing much happens. Few conversations, little time of togetherness. A family decides to read a book whenever there is time. This invariably becomes no time. It is essential to have these basic routines. And then she goes on to say, children love routines. It frees their attention for the activity at hand. Later on, other routines will help. When planning routines, priority must be given to the most important things. The person matters. So I really like where she's saying that it helps children, and I've seen that so much. Like, they get anxious when they don't know what's happening, what comes next, when having these routines, they can focus more on their school because they know this is just what we do, right? I don't have to worry that, and life happens, so stuff might happen to mess up our routine, but the routine means we're doing it regularly.
Right. You keep moving forward. Consistency is the main thing. Okay, yes, today got messed up because we ended up, we had to go run this errand that we expected. There's a dentist appointment or something. But then you just got to get up the next morning and just start again. Just keep moving forward. And I think I used to worry more before I graduated my first one about that. But now that I have 3 out and I've sort of seen, it's just the daily moving forward that really does keep you on track, just moving forward every day, following that routine. And I do want to say this, I think we need to give ourselves and our children a whole lot of grace. And, we can go on Instagram, we can go on Facebook, and we see these pictures of children sitting at the table, and they all have, their books open, they're smiling, mom looks great, she's got on makeup, there's a beautiful, perfect snack in front of them. This is not reality. These people took this picture for Instagram posts, right? For Facebook. This is not the way it really looks in real life. And I think if you just acknowledge that from the beginning, that, a lot of grace for you to try to figure it out, a lot of you talking about that, this first really didn't work. So we're going to switch this around and we're going to try something different the next time.
Yeah. Now, be okay with the fact that you are going to adjust. You're not going to figure it all out. And I think a lot of people I've talked to feel this pressure, like, before we can start, I have to figure everything out and have everything planned, and then everything will be wonderful. And I'm like,
I have to buy every book for all year long, and I have to have it all written down, and it's just going to frustrate you. And because I've done it, I know it because I've tried it. So
you have to be willing to adjust midstream, change the schedule, change the routine, find a rhythm that works for you, and then be consistent with it. But sometimes that just takes time. You've never done this before, your kid's never done this before, you're just going to have to kind of work together, but keep that communication open. This doesn't seem to be working. Is this working for you? Do you have another idea of what get them on board and excited? Okay, so we're going to be home for lunch. What are some things you'd all like to make? What do you want to eat? Get them to help plan some of this with you. What are some things you'd really love to learn about? That's a crazy idea, right? Ask them.
What are you interested in? What would you like to check out from the library that you can take some time on your own for free study in the afternoon, even, that's beyond regular study. So,
Yeah. And, if wherever you live in typical 3rd grade class learns weather, and weather bores the poop out of your child, but they love snakes, does it really matter? Are they never going to learn about weather ever again? No. You can spend a good deal of time on snakes and other reptiles and things like that, and they're going to learn way more than they would if you're doing something just because that's what you're supposed to do at that grade. I'm not talking about like math and things. You have to learn certain skills at certain ages.
Right. But freedom within the structure. Yeah. And I think this you and I, we've been doing this for, a long time now. And we really understand that concept. But I do find that people who this is new to, they're like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean I don't have to do weather? What do you mean? You're in the third grade. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I think, and when you decide that you're going to step outside that box and really consider the freedom to really individualize instruction and interest to your own child and their skill set, it's just huge. And it can really that's what makes it fun. That's what makes me excited about homeschooling every day.
Yeah.
And I will say this, when you talk about routines, if I'm bored with it, my kids know. So I try to find something every day that I'm excited about us doing in that day, whether it's a chapter in the read aloud or we're doing a science experiment. It doesn't have to be anything big, or I'm going to make a fun snack, or I really love this person in history, or whatever. But something that will give me a spark every day, and that makes me look forward to it. And then my attitude is positive, and that really does feed over into my children.
Yeah. For sure. Your attitude is going to set the whole temperature of the whole thing. So work on yourself. And that's the other thing. I mean, we talked about that. I don't remember what podcast episode it was, but like the importance of self-care. Like as a mom, when you start homeschooling, it is exhausting. So you have to purposely plan time for you to take care of yourself so you don't burn out.
Right. Even if it's just start the morning with a cup of coffee and whatever you need to do. Yes, super important.
Or a run, or whatever it is. Yeah. Get that time for you for sure, because you won't last if you're just continually pouring out into your kids and your family. Right. So let's talk about morning time. You want to kind of give people an idea of what that is?
Sure. Well, for us, morning time has some different specifics, but basically it's a time where everybody starts the school day together, and you cover a certain list of things that you can do as a group, no matter what the age or grade level. Yeah. So we start ours with Bible time every morning, and then each day we do something a little bit different, but normally we learn about an artist, we read a poem, we do a little bit of history reading. I normally do my read alouds are in morning time. But it's just an important time to start the day together, where you're doing things that you can combine all your ages. I mean, I've had from a senior to a third grader sitting down at morning time together, and we're all doing the same thing. And doesn't last a long time, normally no more than like 30 minutes, sometimes 45 if we really get into a conversation. And then we move on to individualized instruction. But it's a great way to start the day, where everybody comes together, starting together. You sort of get your feet underneath you for the day, take a deep breath, and start with a positive note.
Yeah, and I think that's a different kind of concept probably for a lot of people, that because so-and-so's in third grade, here's all the things they're doing, and so-and-so's in fifth grade, and here's all the things they're doing, and like everyone's off, we're going to do our own things, and I'm just going to check and make sure you all do them. But you have this really unique opportunity to bring your family together, and there are things that a senior and a third grader can still love and appreciate together. Yeah. And it does create that family culture that you don't get when everyone's off doing their separate grade level work. So it really is a unique opportunity that you have as homeschooling. So it might not, again, like, do I have permission to do that? Can we learn some things together? Yes, of course, right?
Yes. And also what the younger ones get from the older ones, and what the older ones get from the younger ones, even in that small time period, is super important and really valuable for their own relationship. And when we start every morning with Bible time, and then my children talk about what we read in the scripture, and it's amazing the depth that some of those young people, that the younger ones can give, that the older ones are, oh, I've never thought of that before. So morning time is just it's tried and true, set in stone in this house. I mean, every single day, that's what we start out during the weekdays.
Right. And I was going to read, this is from Mere Motherhood by Cindy Rollins. And she says this, I think she has another book called Morning Time, right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember the title, but I'm talking about
book, but she says, morning time is a way to collect little grains of sand. It should not be a way to complicate life, but rather simplify it. If you have something that you want your children to assimilate, like poetry or scripture or music or Shakespeare. Forget the grand schemes. Forget what the mom is doing down the street. Start giving that thing 1 or 2 minutes of your time daily and watch the years roll by. And so morning time for me is an opportunity to add in what might not be considered typical school subjects, right? I mean, well, like art and music and things, but you don't have to have a whole big 30-minute separate lesson for those subjects. Bring in those things in little, like she's saying, those little few minutes every day, and they do add up to a life.
And one of the things I love about that passage, I've read that passage so many times. That book is just like one of those dear to my heart books. But she says, forget what the mom is doing down the street. And I do want to say, comparison is just death. It's toxic.
Yeah.
And I know I have thrown myself into a tailspin before comparing my homeschool and my children's abilities to other moms, because I feel like I can't live up to that. I can't do that. My kid is not this. It really, comparison is just death. And so whether it's morning time or whether it's your routine, whether it's the curriculum that you choose, it's important to get input from people that you respect and that have some experience. But we just can't compare. I need to listen to the Holy Spirit for my children and do that little tug on my heart. I think this is important right now, that maybe we do a little character development on kindness, right? I don't need to worry about whether the kids down the street need that. I need to worry about my kids and what it looks like in my home and trust that. And it's very hard to get that. Even I've been doing this a long time, but to really trust that what your kids need the most. Right. That's so important. So I love that passage.
Yeah. And that's super important too, because there's going to be lots of people to compare with now. But that you have to make decisions for what is best for your kids, and it's not going to be the same as everybody else's, and to be okay with that. It's not everyone must do this because your child is in 3rd grade. Like, you are giving that, you are now able to go out of the box and have that freedom to educate your child with what your family values and what is important for them. So embrace that. Don't fear it. So we talked a little bit about curriculum, and start small, don't spend a bunch of money. Do you have any other thoughts on that?
You can just, a simple internet search of homeschool curriculum will blow your mind. So I think it's important to know that you probably won't finish with what you started with. What you start with is probably not what you're going to finish with. And, there's Charlotte Mason, which I completely believe in, but, there's, of course, things that are more traditional. There's all online school. There's, all these different things. I think before you believe everything that you read, one thing that helps me is to find somebody before you make a curriculum choice that you respect that homeschools. Even if it's somebody you find through a Facebook group, and talk to them, a real person, about what it could look like for you to use that thing before you spend the money on it. So you may think Becca is an awesome choice because they're going to give you the workbooks and you're going to say, this is what you're going to do. You sit down, you do it. And I have friends that use it and love it. But before you invest in that curriculum, what does that really entail? What does that really look like?
Yes, you can with it and dive into it and look through it. And right. It can. Or even look on used sites, eBay, and if you have used homeschool bookstores here, but really just dive into it and say, okay, what would this actually look like on a daily basis? Come Monday, what are we actually going to do with this book and this program, right? And it can be very tempting to have a curriculum where every day is scripted for you for every subject.
Yes,
and that gets old really fast.
Yes, it does. And there's also a resource, a lady named Kathy Duffy. I don't know if you have heard of her. Yeah, she used to have books. Like, I used to buy the books back in the day. That's how long I've been homeschooled. You had to buy her book. Now she has a website where she has very fair reviews of things that sort of tells you, this is what this is going to look like if you buy this. This is what this is going to look like. And that's really helpful to find out, other than just looking on the website. because they want you to buy their curriculum. They're going to tell you it's the answer to every single thing. So if you go on there, it will give you a more balanced view, I think. I really trust her. I trust her reviews. I always check there if I'm going to purchase something. So.
Yeah, that's a great resource. Yeah, she still has her like little website with all her different recommendations and things like that. But the reason I say that for daily scripted lessons, it gets old because by the end of the first week, you're going to be on this page and this subject and this, because life happens. And again, your child is not a part on a factory assembly line. So they can't follow this day. I can read this much and this, like, things happen and your child is unique. And so you're going to want to adjust it, but then the plans are all written like that and it can become really overwhelming. So I recommend, and planning a week at a time. I sit down on Sunday, I look through our resources, kind of, I have the general idea of where we're going, and I can look through the books and write out my little spiral notebook plans in like 30 minutes, for 3 to 4 kids.
Yep, that's what I do. Every Sunday night, I spend like 20 to 30 minutes getting an overview of the week. Right. And then when I wake up on Monday, I can say, okay, here's Monday's work. Yeah. It's a lot less than what I used to spend when I was flipping through specific, when I first started. I'm like, oh, okay, this, you're on this subject, you're on this page this week. It was like, oh, crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I recommend, kind of having a general idea of where you're going and what you want to accomplish, because otherwise you could spend your entire Sunday on Pinterest printing out different ideas, right? And come like, oh, this looks interesting, and this is fun.
And then you have lots of plans, but nothing ever gets done, which is super. Yeah, homeschool planning is super fun if you like that kind of thing. Yeah, and then you wake up on Monday, you're like, wait a minute, we have to have what? We have to have baking soda and this and this and this. I didn't go to the store and buy that. And you know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, never mind. We won't get that.
So obviously we both use Untitled Feast, which is a curriculum based on the educational philosophy of a woman named Charlotte Mason. So you might have heard, or you may not have ever heard of that. If you are interested in that kind of education, I'm going to read a little passage from one of her volumes of education. She wrote 6 volumes of educational philosophy, but I feel like this passage just does a good job of giving you kind of a little bit of overview of what she was teaching and how she viewed education. So she says, this is briefly how it works. A child is a person with the spiritual requirements and capabilities of a person. Knowledge nourishes the mind as food nourishes the body. A child requires knowledge as much as he requires food. He is furnished with a desire for knowledge, i.e. curiosity, with the power to apprehend knowledge, that is attention, with powers of mind to deal with knowledge, without aid from without, such as imagination, reflection, judgment, with innate interest in all knowledge that he needs as a human being, and with the power to retain and communicate such knowledge and to assimilate all that is necessary to him. He requires that in most cases, knowledge be communicated to him in literary form and reproduces knowledge touched by his own personality. This natural provision for the appropriation and assimilation of knowledge is adequate and no stimulus is required. But some moral control is necessary to secure the act of attention. A child receives this in the certainty that he will be required to recount what he has read. In Charlotte Mason circles, we call this narration. Children have a right to the best we possess. Therefore, their lesson books should be, as far as possible, our best books. They weary of talk, key, and questions bore them, so that they should be allowed to use their books for themselves. They will ask for such help as they wish. They will require a great variety of knowledge about religion, humanities, science, art. Therefore, they should have a wide curriculum, a definite amount of reading set for each short period of study. The teacher affords direction, sympathy in studies, a vivifying word here and there, help in the making of experiments, as well as the usual teaching in languages and mathematics. Pursued under these conditions, studies serve for delight, and the consciousness of daily progress is exhilarating to both teacher and the child. The reader will say with truth, I knew all this before and have always acted more or less on these principles. And then she says, whether the way I have sketched this out is right, and the only way, remains to be tested still more widely than in the thousands of cases in which it has been successful. But assuredly, education is slack and uncertain, with the lack of sound principles exactly applied. The moment for decision has come. So, I don't want to take too much of your time to break all this down. If you go on agentlefeast.com, there's a button that says learn more. And I have an email video course where I kind of go through her whole very broad view of her philosophy and how that applies to education. But there are some unique things in here that I think are just kind of highlights as you're thinking through, what do I want my homeschooling with my kids to look like? So what comes to your mind, Shay?
One of the words I love that she uses is assimilate, where they assimilate the knowledge, assimilate the information.
It's a fun word to say too.
Yes, assimilate. It makes you sound smart, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I love that because I made great grades in school. I did great. I loved school. Loved to read. I was, a good student. But I did not assimilate a great amount of information. Because I could learn it for a test and take the test and make an A. I mean, I was really good at that.
So the difference from assimilate and what you did is you regurgitated.
Yes, I regurgitated it. I could do great and do that and get an A, but to assimilate, to take it into myself, this is really my heart for my children, that they would assimilate, like she talks about, based on their individuality. One child is going to assimilate this history lesson one way, another is another way. They're going to take different things, which is how we are in life.
Yeah.
And I love the part where she talks about a wide curriculum rather than just, some narrow, specific. Right. The 3 R's, just a wide variety of things that we're just handing them these bites of, and then they can say, wow, that tasted really good. I would like to learn more about that thing. And that is one of the things that keeps me going and helps me to, and I've seen the fruit of those things too, I think is the thing now with the older children. Like I've seen that it really does work. And it really does create like a hunger in them for the things that they're interested in.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and she's saying that kids have this innate curiosity. This is human nature, right? We need to feed our minds. It's a craving that we have. But we do that through reading really amazing books and putting our children in touch with them and not doing a lot of talking or a lot of questioning or a lot of workbook pages and things like that. That kills that desire, right? And so she really talks about fostering that and how we do that in a child's life rather than kind of killing it, right? And having them be motivated from within to want to learn. And it's a total night and day difference. So
it really is. And when you go back all the way, we talked about at the beginning, the purposes and the goals, if you really have the goal and the purpose of creating learners, fostering learners, then this is such a beautiful way to do that, because it really is putting it in their hands. It is their education. And her quote about self-education, how important that is, that's the only education that there is, and all other education is just a veneer on their personality, just something that can be stripped off. But they're following their interests and their their skills. It's just it's a beautiful way to homeschool.
Yeah. And I'll link to some, we did some kind of overview podcasts. So we did one on the role of a student and the role of a teacher. So you can kind of listen to that and see how that would be different than maybe a traditional school teacher-student role. And then we did one, her kind of overview is education is an atmosphere, a discipline, and a life. So we did 3 episodes on kind of breaking down what each of those look like. That would be super helpful, I think, too. People that want to dig in more.
I mean, you and I can talk about that all day long. I mean, we can talk about Charlotte all day long, but if you're interested, that's a great place to get started.
Right, and you might not be, and it might not be the right fit for what you're doing and what you need to do for this current year. But if you are interested, those are some resources that will kind of get you started, kind of going down that path. But I think most of what we have said relates to just homeschooling in general. You want to keep it legal. You want to find support. You want to develop your goals and your purpose, and then come up with your plan. So it really can be done. It's not that daunting. So do you have any closing thoughts?
No, other than your children better than anybody else. And I believe firmly that the Holy Spirit is my helper and is their teacher. And so that's one of the things that carries me, is that, he knows them better than me, and that I can trust him to guide me. And you can do this and enjoy it. It does not have to
Right.
be a miserable burden. You can do this and really enjoy it. Yep.
Yeah, and I hope you will, and I hope this video has given you all some help and direction if you are starting homeschooling. Can't wait to hear how it goes. All right, so thanks, Shay.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, Julie. Bye-bye.